Good afternoon, everyone. This is Stefania Viscusi from Technology Marketing Corporation, and welcome to today's webinar called SIP Trunking, How to Get the Biggest Bang for Your Buck, sponsored by Patton. Thanks for joining us today. Before we begin with our presentation, just a quick program note. Our presenters will be answering questions during a Q&A session that will follow the presentation. I encourage you to submit your questions to us using the interface on your PC at any time, either during the Q&A or as they arise during the presentation. Now, we do have a poll for our audience today if you'd like to take a minute to respond. Our poll question is, how would you rate your knowledge on rolling out a SIP trunking solution? Low, mid, expert, or in the learning process? While you answer that poll, I do also want to remind you that at the end of this webinar, you will be receiving a link for a free case study that details how Patton deployed Broadvox SIP trunks themselves in their corporate headquarters and how this led to their partnership and VoIPReady. Also, each of you will be receiving information on how to access the recorded version of this webinar tomorrow, so you can follow up on anything that you missed or pass the information on to your colleagues. Now that we've had a minute to check out the poll, let's see our results. It looks like 52.9% of our audience responded low, 36% responded mid, 4% responded expert, and 16% responded in the learning process. Okay, great. With that, then, I'd like to hand over the event to Bert Patton, Executive Vice President at Patton, to introduce our speakers.
Thank you, Stefania. I am Bert Patton. I'm one of the founders and the Executive Vice President here at Patton. Folks, we have a wonderful turnout for this webinar, and I'm so glad you all joined. The participation today is testimony to both the importance of the topic we're discussing as well as the impact of the alliances that have been formed with our industry peers. I have the pleasure of introducing our speakers today in 2 minutes or less. So let me introduce you to our first speaker. Chad Krantz is an executive director at the SIP trunking provider called Broadvox. Chad has spent 15 years dedicated to the communications industry, building alliances and partnerships that enable his clients to really leverage new technology into solid and tangible benefits. So Chad's going to show you how a properly designed SIP network will create efficiencies and economies of scale that are unrivaled in the industry. After Chad speaks, we're going to be hearing from Ramon Felder. Ramon is the president and CEO of Patton's operations in Europe. Ramon has total P&L responsibility for our European operations and runs Patton's VoIP Competency Center in Bern, Switzerland. As Ramon is playing a global role as a mentor and executive PLM for the SmartNode family of products. Ramon's going to talk about how Patton addresses SIP trunking and explain to you that your SIP trunk is really good when you don't remember that you have one. Finally, we're going to hear from Robert Messer. Robert's the president of ABP Technology, which is a unique kind of channel in the IT market, focused totally on bringing to market only IP technology products and only best of breed. Robert's going to wrap things up and talk about VoIPReady, which is a truly simplified way to deploy SIP trunks using the Patton SmartNodes. So without further delay, we're going to move into the meat of the presentations, and I'm handing it over to Chad Krantz.
Thank you, Bert. And thanks to everyone for joining the conference today. Patton, ABP, and Broadvox are excited to deliver the SIP trunking, How to Get the Biggest Bang for Your Buck webinar. The table of contents for today's session will be as follows. First, we'll explore why SMBs and enterprises are adopting SIP trunking as the preferred voice communications protocol. Next, we will define SIP trunking and some of the benefits to the corporate world. Then I will hand the meeting off to Ramon Felder of Patton to explore strategies for implementing a SIP solution and solutions for common pitfalls. Then Robert Messer will close the presentation portion of the webinar with pre-configured solutions via VoIPReady. Again, time permitting, we do plan to take questions from the audience at the end of today's event. So for those of you who may not be familiar with Broadvox or the company, before we dive into explaining why SIP or what is SIP, I would like to introduce Broadvox to those of you who may not be familiar. Broadvox is an Internet telephony service provider, or an ITSP, with an extensive SIP and hosted service offering. Founded in 2001, we are headquartered in Dallas, Texas. Broadvox began as a wholesale SIP provider, delivering origination and termination services to carriers. As SIP technology became the VoIP protocol of choice for the OEMs, Broadvox introduced the Go SIP product line, and to date we have a little over 300 wholesale carriers and a little over 10,000 enterprise and SMB clients. The network employs integrated VoIP soft switching and gateway technologies, transporting over 1.2 billion minutes of traffic each month, making us one of the largest ITSPs in North America. Tyler, can you advance the slide? Very good. Okay, as you can see, Broadvox has built a dedicated privatized network across North America. This network depicts the fully redundant backbone Broadvox maintains and is made up of approximately 92 geographically dispersed points of presence. The core network elements are Cisco, Juniper, Adtran, Sonos, Genband, and Broadsoft. Next slide. Broadvox also operates its Network Operations Center, strategically located out of Cleveland, Ohio, staffed 24/7, 365, and Broadvox employs the most qualified SIP engineering team in the industry, providing carrier-grade reliability throughout the network and toll quality voice. Next slide. Okay, so what are some of the VoIP headlines of today? IP communications adoptions has increased dramatically over the last 2 years and is poised for extensive growth. From 17% in 2008 to 27% in 2010, showing an overall increase of 59% from a market perspective. The adoption rate for companies of more than 100% has been greater, although we do see a huge market opportunity for selling VoIP and SIP solutions into smaller companies, especially with 50 or fewer employees. And then sales of IP communications are expected to grow over the next 2 years. Over 2/3 of companies with 20 to 100 employees say they will switch to a SIP or VoIP type solution. And then we still see a big educational gap among SMBs, especially as the perception of IP communications are negative regarding cost, features, and call quality. And then last, obviously we see a major importance or play with the channel in closing this communications gap, as they are an extremely important component of the sales success. 40 to 50% of sales to the SMB clients are currently made through dealers and on the VAR community. And of course, Broadvox certainly values our existing channel partner relationships and are committed to those moving forward. Next slide. So now we kind of understand the market. So how do businesses connect today for their voice communications, and what type of market penetration has SIP generated within the enterprise and SMB communities? A recent SIP trunking adoption survey conducted in North America, as that's where the largest adoption rate has been to date worldwide, surveyed 100 enterprise and mid-sized companies. To qualify for this survey, the companies had to have an IP PBX. And as you can see, there's still a strong legacy growth into the legacy technologies and into 2013. Although SIP trunking is coming along, with over 40% of the respondents having a SIP trunking use today, of those, they're only using it for a portion of their trunking needs. So we still see significant growth within hybrid usage. With these results, obviously, Broadvox sees a tremendous market opportunity for delivering SIP trunking through the VoIPReady solution, which again Robert Messer will detail during his portion of this presentation. Moving forward. Again, the market forecast is extremely positive for SIP. SIP trunking is one of the largest growing services to the enterprise market. The U.S. market is expected to reach over $3 billion in revenues and over 5 million trunks in service by 2013. And the two main, attributes, if you will, that are driving the success or driving the growth of SIP trunking are cost savings and operational efficiencies. And again, North America is driving and leading that demand. Next slide. Okay, so now that we've discussed the SIP market, I'd like to cover why companies are adopting SIP. In the next few slides, we'll cover the four kind of main facets. One, the cost savings opportunities for businesses. Obviously, in today's economy, cost savings play a big role in a corporation. The managed network security aspects as it relates to SIP. The end user value proposition. And finally, we'll cover SIP trunking versus TDM in a great slide we have put together. Okay, so the cost savings opportunities for businesses leveraging SIP technology can be easily identified in three main areas: access cost, cost per minute or usage, and moves, adds, and changes. As for access costs, today the average POTS line across North America is approximately $45 each per month. Comparatively, the cost of a SIP concurrent call session, or CCS, which is often the term identified for a channel or a trunk, sometimes you'll see identified in terms of the ratio comparatively to TDM, is $15 per month. Obviously, this is showing a 66.7% savings just on the monthly service fees. Furthermore, SIP can be transported over the same IP network access used for other data services. Number two, the cost per minute, or LD usage, can be reduced leveraging a SIP network. The average domestic long distance rate in North America is 4.2 cents per minute. That compared to the average SIP LD cost at 0.019 cents per minute. This is also representing a 55% estimated savings. And furthermore, enterprises, again, are leveraging their existing WAN data networks, i.e. private lines, MPLS, VPN-type connections out to the remote sites to route internal voice communications via SIP, thus eliminating intercompany toll cost. And then from a moves, adds, and changes perspective, it's easily and more efficiently provisioned via SIP as compared to TDM-based networks. SIP enables companies to simply expand capacity, implement business continuity with overflow routing capabilities, and disaster recovery plans are easily deployed via SIP. Next slide. As for the network security aspect, this is obviously of utmost concern to most enterprises. Deployment of SIP trunking can be provided via a secure encrypted method. So it is important to conduct a full LAN network assessment when considering a move to SIP. A SIP-aware firewall, bandwidth considerations, and other CPE requirements are necessary, so it is extremely important to enlist a SIP-certified engineer to investigate the technical aspects of your particular LAN. Next slide. And then from why SIP trunking, again, the end user value proposition. Again, reduced telecommunications charges up to 70% identified by most carriers. Fewer service providers needed, so not only can most ITSPs carry your SIP traffic, but they can become your ISP as well, so eliminating vendors. And thus, SIP trunking can be utilized with existing or legacy CPE PBX equipment, utilizing a gateway or with an IP PBX or hybrid type PBX as well. And some of the SIP-based applications that we've seen businesses deploying are unified communications, i.e. fax to email and voice to email type solutions, presence, find me, follow me, and instant message. And then the final bullet point on this slide can best be summarized by stating that multi-location customers are widely adopting SIP to support their branch offices and telecommuters. SIP trunking enables the corporation the ability to centralize trunking, thus eliminating the need for multiple servers across the enterprise. And this obviously inherently dramatically reduces the need for IT support, on especially such as examples like a voicemail server or whatnot for multi-location customers. Next slide. Okay, this diagram kind of depicts the TDM versus SIP in the cloud, so to speak. And the advantages of a SIP trunking, especially in a multi-location environment, as you can see it from on the left-hand side, in a TDM-based network utilizing a point-to-point and a private line type connectivity, you do have a single point of failure as all of the trunking resides within the headquarters location. Alternatively, with SIP trunking, this enables the remotes to kind of survive as standalone, if you will, as the actual trunking resides within the carrier's network. So inherently, in a disaster recovery or disaster type in event, the remotes can survive as standalone. Next slide. Okay, so now that we have a good understanding on why SMBs and enterprise companies are deploying SIP, let's discuss what is SIP trunking by definition. SIP trunking is a voice over internet protocol service based upon session initiation protocol, or SIP, which is by which internet telephony service providers deliver telephony services and unified communications to customers. Next slide. So the traditional or typical TDM-based delivery to an SMB or an enterprise type customer utilizing TDM delivers individual dedicated voice lines to a phone system which terminates to a specific extension. Obviously, this is an extremely inefficient way to deliver voice communications, as oftentimes lines are in idle status. Next slide. And conversely, obviously, with SIP-based networks transporting via an ITSP, the voice services can be dynamically allocated, either leveraging an existing wide area network or dedicated access from the ITSP. This network topology enables more efficient utilization of the SMBs and enterprise voice communications. Next slide. Okay, Stefania, I believe we have another poll for the audience.
Yes, we do. Our poll question is, where are you in the process of evaluating a SIP trunking or converged IP communication solution for your organization. Just now researching, plan to implement in the next 6 months, plan to implement in the next 6 to 12 months, plan to implement in the next 12 months or more, not sure, or I'm not involved in the process. And can you tell us, Chad, Robert, or Ramon, what are your predictions here on what our audience will be responding to this?
Hey, this is Ramon. I think that we will see a good portion who is researching it now and wants to take the opportunity of this webinar to learn more about it. But I think there's also a significant part of people who are involved in the business and are already doing some of it in some locations. What do you think, Chad?
I would hope that we're certainly researching now, and I don't see the option on the slide, but I'd like to see within the next month. But realistically speaking, I do believe it'll be over the next 6 months.
That's the same next week. Let's go ahead and take a look at those results then. Okay, it looks like 29.2% responded just now researching, 20% responded in the next plans to implement in the next 6 months, 5.3% in the next 6 to 12, 3% in the next 12 or more, 14.6% responded not sure, and 27.6% I'm not involved in the process.
Okay.
Looks like we have to give reasons to all the not sures.
Yeah, good, but that looks excellent. All right. Good, thanks very much, Chad and Stefania. This is Ramon Felder. I'm excited to join you from Switzerland here tonight. And I'm also excited to do this together with our industry partners because I think really that together we can deliver a great value to you on SIP trunking. Like you mentioned that I'm joining you over a SIP trunk, which we've had in operation for years, and that we hardly remember we have it, and that's when it's a good SIP trunk. Good. So let me go into 3 strategies on how to deploy SIP trunking with conventional PBX systems, then all IP systems, so basically connecting IP PBX or unified communication system to a SIP trunk, and then how to benefit in a migration process also from SIP trunking. So for the first part, I'm trying to advance the slide here. Yes, it's coming on. So this is really the traditional PBX solution. So if you have your trusted Panasonic NEC or Avaya PBX, which has been in operation, which people know how to use, they know how to do call transfers, they have their door opening and answer system and all kinds of special attachments to their PBX. And they don't want to change the PBX, especially maybe in these times where they don't want to face this investment, but they want to benefit from SIP trunking. In that case, they can put in a VoIP gateway between the PBX and the SIP trunking provider on the WAN side. So why would you choose this solution? I've mentioned some of the points already. Key point is certainly in that solution, you can preserve the investment in the existing system. So if you have your PBX system installed, you can extend the useful life of that equipment. And also very important is that you can benefit from the cost savings that Chad introduced without changing any of the behavior or procedures on the terminal side. There's no special learning curve for the staff. You don't need to retry anything. And basically, if your PBX system is working, why should you change it? So if all you need is a SIP trunk to save costs, that's the simplest and most straightforward way to do it, is by adding a trunking gateway. Next solution, or let's say at the other end or the other end of the scale for SIP trunking solutions, is when you have an IP PBX or unified communication system in place and want to connect that to a SIP trunk. Now, most of IP-PBX or most unified communication systems have the option of having a SIP trunk directly from the IP-PBX, from the server-based system to an ITSP. What we propose here in addition is the option to have terminal gateways in place. So you can connect your legacy analog terminals, fax equipment, or any dedicated terminals to your IP-PBX, but also to introduce a CPE-based, so customer site-based session border controller. We call that also an enterprise session border router, ESBR, which gives you some added functionality. You can now control up and downstream quality over your internet access, and you can manage the security and the registrations on your premises, and it's not network based. So that can be also, from a security point of view, be a value add for the network administrator to keep a single point of contact between the ITSP, the SIP trunking provider, and your in-house deployment. All right, moving on to the next slide here. So why would you do that? Of course, you get all the benefits from SIP trunking we've heard about. You get also in this scenario the benefits from from an IP-PBX solution on premises. So, for example, the converged on-premises network, only a single wiring infrastructure, etc. All the benefits from unified communication that we're not talking about here, but things like CTI, click-to-call, CRM integration, etc. You have that as well. Right, and then the next approach or strategy or solution is the combination of both, or the migration between one to the other. And although it may look more complicated than the others, I would say it's really quite a typical case. Oftentimes you will have a situation where you have a PBX in place, you want to continue to use that, but and you want to have cost savings from a SIP trunk, so you're using a gateway, a SIP trunking gateway, together with your existing PBX, and at the same time you may want to migrate or expand your solution, and you don't want to invest, or the capacity of your PBX has reached a limit, so you can add an IP PBX in a separate department or location, and then start to smoothly migrate extensions from the old PBX to the IP PBX. So we also have products for these type of scenario, which allow you to do session border controller plus gateway in a single product, and provide also the call routing between the old and the new world and the old and the new PBX. So which benefits do you get from that kind of solution? We've heard about all the SIP trunking benefits, conventional PBX benefits, and in addition to that, you can now stage your investments into an IP PBX environment, and you can smoothly migrate from one to the other. Right. So all of these solutions, the main products that or the main customers that we are addressing are really business solutions. So small, medium enterprises. You've seen in Chad's presentation that there is still a huge potential to grow the business and the number of SIP trunks in that area. We have a full line of VoIP gateways, gateway routers, and integrated access devices, which cover exactly that segment. It's important to know that these gateways or smart node products are not just gateways, but they have IP routing integrated. They have integrated options for WAN technologies like DSL, and they have VoIP border controller functionality. We cover up to 32 analog ports on FXS or FXO, up to 4 T1 ports, and less important in North America, but in some other regions we also have a full BRI product line. We put a lot of focus on quality of service, security, VPN functionality, fax over IP. Fax and modem are probably two of the most challenging functions for any SIP or voice over IP system, and we've really focused on providing a reliable, high quality fax and modem solutions as well. And we've done a lot of work over the past 10 years to provide interoperability with all the systems which are out in the market. We've also see a little bit about survivability, so how to improve the quality and the reliability of your installation. We'll have just a couple more points on that coming up. Good. Let's go to the next slide here. When we ask our customers why they choose our product, these are typically the answers that we do get. The high voice quality and the quality of the products, the reliability of the products in their installations. Typical statement is you install it, you forget about it, it keeps running. Proven interoperability with a wide range of SIP trunking providers, soft switches, IP PBXs. The focus really on the enterprise feature set and functionality. So we prefer to go a little bit further on supporting features which are required by the SME and the business customers. We get a lot of very great feedback on our customer support, and our products are made in the USA with engineering done in North America and Europe. Good. Next on, a few points on some common pitfalls and how we can help you to address those. So interoperability is one, quality, migration scenarios, and then also a couple of words on dedicated versus single access. And then with the complications in setup, we'll lead over to ABP, who has a nice solution for that point as well. So provider interoperability, up to now or up to a few years ago, when everything was TDM, was analog lines, was T1, you could really pretty much rely on that a T1 line is a T1 line, and wherever you get it and connect to it, it's working. We are not quite there yet on SIP. SIP, yes, it is a standard, and typically your basic SIP call will work with pretty much any device. But then if you get into more specific features like DTMF handling, supplementary services like calling line identification, number blocking, etc., then the behavior between different SIP devices and different SIP services is not necessarily the same. Our experience in interoperability with all of these different systems and the flexibility that you get in configuring our products can really help you to get the right solution and the right match between your PBX, your IP PBX, and the SIP trunk on the other side. We can convert from pretty much any to any SIP system and service there. Next then is quality concerns that you may have. In terms of voice quality, the biggest enemy of voice quality is jitter, delay, packet loss, which are things which are typically related to the IP network itself. So of course you do need a good quality internet connection and sufficient bandwidth. That's part of the design of the network. But also the equipment that you're using do have a big impact on that. And we've seen in measurements and comparisons that if this is not done right, a piece of equipment can easily add a lot of jitter and a lot of delay in the connection, and that can be the straw that breaks the camel's back, and your call quality really goes down. So this is where in our products we also have invested a lot to make sure that we really manage the real-time aspects of IP, make sure we have minimal delay in the system, minimal jitter in the system. We handle the codecs and the fax handling in the best possible way to ensure a high quality. That also has to do with interoperability again on methods and on protocols like T38 for fax transmission to ensure best quality on that side. Good. Migration is also a topic and maybe fallback. So if you have concerns, for example, with the stability of your internet connection, the reliability of your internet connection, it may be a good thing to keep just a couple of PSTN lines for fallback routing. This is also a functionality that we can support on the CPE. It may also be just to bridge the time lag between porting a number away from your TDM PSTN provider to a Broadvox SIP trunk, for example, that during this time you have both the PSTN and the IP network connected to your gateway, and you get incoming calls from the PSTN while you already make outgoing calls to the SIP trunk. Or, as I mentioned, you may choose to keep a couple of lines to the PSTN as fallback or for some special services. Finally, when you deploy a SIP trunk, you may come up to the question on using your existing internet access or using a dedicated IP broadband access for your SIP trunk. So this is mainly this can be a question of just dimensioning. If you see that you have 10 concurrent calls and they're really used most of the time, you may not have enough bandwidth on your existing internet access and choose to have a separate line. But it also has to do with quality management and what kind of service level agreement or priority services you may get on your internet access. So we do see the scenario where people are deploying SIP trunks on a dedicated broadband access for these reasons. Of course, if you can put, and that will be on the next slide, if you can put the SIP trunk and your internet access on the same line, you have additional cost savings that you can benefit from. You just need to make sure that you manage the traffic management on this line in terms of upstream traffic going from the enterprise to the WAN and VoIP network. That is pretty straightforward, and a lot of routers may be able to do that. In the other direction, downstream, that is more difficult. But there are also methods on how to improve your voice quality in the downstream direction, even if you don't get a special service level from your VoIP provider. We have implemented some of these functions in our products. We call them downstream quality of service, traffic shaping, etc., are also included, which, by the way, can also help you to optimize your WAN bandwidth, not just for voice, but for different kinds of data traffic that you have from the LAN side. Good. So with that, on the next slide, we see that once you're convinced, You say, yes, this is what I want to do, what I need to do, what I convinced my customer to get. Then there comes the question of how do I set this up, and what know-how do I need? How much time will it take me? How do I configure all of the involved equipment? And do I get the right equipment to be interoperable with my SIP trunking provider? And with these questions, I would like to hand over to Robert, who can give you some good answers to that. All right.
Thank you, Ramon and Chad. What a great segue here to this last part of the presentation. Well, my name is Robert Messer. I'm the founder and president of ABP Technology. Let me start with a real quick intro on ABP Technology for those that don't know us. We are a national specialty distributor of IP technology products. We have a long history in VoIP and gateways, helping resellers sell solutions in that space and also doing fulfillment for customer premise equipment for service providers. Now, connecting with Ramon, first of all, we see that with the trend into SIP, the gateway itself is a really critical piece for helping a lot of companies that are at that junction of moving into SIP. They're interested in moving into SIP, but they just bought equipment, or they're basically not ready to completely change over their existing PBX system. Their legacy systems work. They may have complex IVRs, lots of phones, everything is in perfect shape. So how can they have benefit from the savings of getting into SIP trunks without having to completely tear things out and change all over and get into a new solution that they may still have to build, investigate, or create? So we find that in the next few years, moving into SIP trunks using a gateway-based SIP trunk solution is going to be very important for many companies and offers lots of opportunities both for the end users to save and move and benefit from SIP trunks, as well as for the resellers and partners implementing these solutions. And of course, that is not only something of benefit for PBXs on the small end, but it goes all across to the larger number of PRIs that Ramon explained, and also into things like call centers, IVRs, auto dialers, et cetera, et cetera. A quick thing on ABP Technology, and that helps understand where we are and what we're doing. We differentiate ourselves by being quite selective and only selecting just a few products for every product line that we do. We interoperability test all of the devices that we work and we create solutions for our partners. And we also pride ourselves in being able to support everything that we do. So the SIP trunk solution that we're presenting today really is the product of like 10 years of experience of ABP selling VoIP and gateway solutions over resellers, and in working with our service providers doing fulfillment of pre-configured equipment. So, VoIPReady, what exactly is this? VoIPReady is a complete pre-provisioned and pre-configured SIP trunk solution. Basically, it's about a SIP trunk in the box. Ideally, gateway products should work like nailed-down lines, like Ramon was saying. Once you put them in, you should completely forget about them. We tested all of, or let's say a large amount of gateways over the last years, and what we really love about Patton was that they behave exactly like that. They're carrier class quality, they're robust in their software, and they give us long-term reliability, so we basically know that once they're put in, they stay in place, which is exactly what our resellers and of course the end users want. Broadvox is a of all the SIP trunk providers that we found, probably the one that has the most flexibility and the most committed to SIP trunks, and they offer consistent quality in their calls, so they've been a great partner and another building block for building a solution. And then the last package of this complete solution is the service component that we bring into, or where ABP creates a service package where we pre-configure, pre-provision the devices, and we provide installation support to whoever is doing the install, be it the IT department or the reseller, whoever is working on that. So there is a hotline when there are technical questions. Ramon was explaining us the different configurations and settings, and what I can see is there's a lot of complexity for people that are doing this the first time when you're new into this, and I'm sure that a lot of you that were watching this were wondering, how could this be simplified? This seems like really complex, and that's really the core of what the VoIPReady solution brings to the table. It's also worth mentioning that ABP has many years of this experience pre-configuring equipment and to carriers and working with these resellers. We've literally helped hundreds of installations of gateways over the last years. And of course, there's a learning experience in that we packaged into the VoIPReady solution to sort of take out the complexity in the future and really simplify what we're doing. So what does that really mean for us? It means that with VoIPReady, we have an easy-to-choose model. So basically, whoever is deciding what to put in just needs to look at the number of concurrent calls and can immediately pick one of the solutions that we offer. There is a very smooth deployment because the system is basically pre-configured and ready to go. By the time we ship it from here, there's dial tone on the boxes. There's a much faster site deployment because there are less variables in the installation. Everything on the side of the carrier, Broadvox, and on the side of the equipment, the Patton gateways, is all pre-configured and working and has the right settings, and we know it worked. It shipped basically with dial tone. That means that there are a lot less variables during the installation time of how or what could be going on or what are the issues, if there are any issues. Kind of like math. The less variables there are, the easier it's to solve the equation. So when our installation team is working with it, together with our resellers or the IT department in the company, when they're in the network issues, we know we don't have to worry about the things that are already givens. So what's the outcome that we're getting here? Let me start with the end users. He gets a much faster installation, a smooth installation experience. There is less risk of configuration or installation errors. They can start saving on communications much sooner. We basically minimize any interruptions to the business. There's no waiting on the telco to change numbers. You know, the whole provisioning sequence is unnecessary. It's easy to add new lines and numbers as businesses grows into SIP trunks, so they can be scalable, like electronically, or just basically adding more lines by calling the service provider, by speaking to Broadvox. And last but not least, on any larger multi-location deal in a company that has many branches, since there is less complexity and we devised this solution to manage this remotely, it can be easily rolled out for national installations, so that's something that the IT department should really like. From a reseller or agent point of view, of course, there's, number one is, I think it's always a successful deployment, right? We want successful deployments, happy customers. And last but not least, of course, the quicker the closure of the project, the more sales, the better for them. That pretty much wraps up the VoIPReady concept, for many years, as working with resellers, installing these gateways, we always wished our resellers had just picked the right gateway for that service provider. We always just wished we could have known that the gateway was configured right from the beginning. And the network aspect, and could just concentrate on focusing on the network aspects. So basically since we can't get into too much details here today, I want to make sure that for those that want to read more, that you can check out our URL under abptech.com/VoIPReady. And basically, in conclusion, for anybody that's doing these installations, since we had that experience of working with partners for years, we kind of see this VoIPReady package as a dream come true. It's really a way to simplify things, to make it easy and fast to deploy SIP trunks, and just make it happen. And with this, I guess we can just pass on to Stephanie for our next poll or next phase of the presentation.
Thank you so much. Great presentation, guys. Now, before we do get to the questions, I want to remind everyone that you can still submit questions via the interface on your PC. And again, each of you will be receiving a follow-up email with information on accessing the archived version of today's presentation, so you can follow up on anything that you missed. Before we move to that first question here, we do have another poll for our audience. If you can take a second to respond. What is your greatest concern about implementing SIP trunking? Provider interoperability, voice quality, the migration process, defining or optimizing the network architecture, or other/write-in? And while we give the audience a chance to respond to that, I can move on to our first question here. Our question is, do you have a unit for FXO in Broadvox?
Let me take that, Stephanie. Thanks for the question. So yes, we do have also CP units with FXO ports and IP ports, of course, for SIP trunking, so that you could, for example, connect an IP PBX through a SIP trunk to Broadvox and with a couple of FXO lines to a local telephone provider. If you go to patton.com/VoIP, you will see there an overview of the different models that we can offer, combinations, FXS, FXO, etc.
Great, thank you so much. Now that we've had a minute, let's take a look at our audience results on the poll. It looks like 19.7% responded provider interoperability, 31.8% responded voice quality, 20.8% responded the migration process, 25.2% responded defining or optimizing the network architecture, and 2.1% responded other/write-in. Okay, with that, our next audience question has come in. Our question is there an upgrade path from VR4 to VR8?
I think, Robert, maybe for you.
Yes. Yes, there is an upgrade path. We can return a VR4, pay the difference, and send the VR8.
Great, thanks. Ramon, our next question here is for you. Is Patton manufacturing the SBCs you were referring to, or and did you say traffic shaping was part of the box?
Yes. Yes, the session border controllers, session border controller or ESPR is basically a function of most of the smart node products that we are manufacturing. So if you look, for example, at the T1 product line, the smart node 4960 includes that functionality, but also the smaller products with analog ports like the 4520 series. The other question on traffic shaping, yes, that's also a standard function included in all of the products which have routing functionality, so multiple Ethernet ports or Ethernet plus other WAN ports.
Great, thanks, Ramon. Chad, our next question here is for you. Are there considerations that a Canadian company should take into account using a U.S.-based ITSP, latency, price differences, etc.?
Okay, so there are some considerations. From a latency perspective, it's not as concerning because we have obviously POPs and points of presence, and different carriers, different ITSPs have POPs. So you need to kind of verify that you can hop onto any ITSP's network relatively in an efficient manner. From a pricing perspective, that also can from that perspective. But the one real key piece that I believe is of the utmost importance is verifying the portability of their numbers. So there are only a certain number of carriers who have agreements with, such as Rogers Communications and some of the other carriers in Canada. So those are just some of the considerations I would take into effect.
Great, thanks, Chad. Robert, our next question here, I guess, is for you. Are there solutions to handle a much larger office, or would the purchase of multiple boxes be needed to handle, say, a call center of 130 people?
It's actually, we can do both. First of all, there is a larger box. There are boxes with, four PRIs that would handle about 120 concurrent calls, and also boxes, since these are basically lines, PR lines that feed into the PBX, and the PBX is handling the number of concurrent calls and aggregating them. We can combine boxes. So they could use 2 4 PRI boxes to 2 or 3 2 PRI boxes.
Great, thanks. Our next question is also for you, Robert. Is Broadvox a gateway router to connect, like a LAN router, etc.?
Well, Broadvox has Broadvox, of course, is the service provider, the SIP trunk service. Patton, the Patton device, basically is a gateway that converts from SIP trunk to IP. There are devices, Patton devices, that do have LAN router function, but in the VoIPReady solution, we're extracting it because we're assuming that the customer already has their routers, and so we're basically simplifying it by specializing and focusing just on the gateway portion, and then of course other features can be added later, like Ramon was saying, from session border controllers, etc. But VoIPReady fundamentally is a gateway solution, taking a SIP trunk over IP and bringing out a series of 8 POTS lines, 4 POTS lines, or PRIs to the PBX.
Great, thanks for that response. Ramon, our next question here is for you. A VoIP provider told me they would use a SIP trunk to bring my T1 line. Am I just mixed up with terminology, or can a SIP trunk be a carrier for a T1?
Yes, I think this is really the first scenario that I showed there during the presentation, where this trunking provider is offering you a physical T1 interface to connect your existing PBX, but then on the back side is really using a SIP trunk to carry the voice to his network. So this is exactly the scenario that we have seen, and which is also exactly the scenario ABP is providing with the VoIPReady solution.
And just to kind of add to that, I mean, and I think what the question is asking, the T1, think of it as the transport method to the customer prem. The signaling that runs across that T1, for example, in a TDM world would be PRI. In the IP world would be SIP. So the transport method is the T1, if you will, but the signaling type can vary in terms of what you would run across that connectivity.
Great, thank you. Our next question, Ramon, I believe you can respond to this maybe. Are there bandwidth requirements for SIP sessions?
I can take that question. There are bandwidth requirements for SIP sessions, and more specifically, there are bandwidth requirements for the concurrent call session. So there are typically 2 codecs supported from a voice perspective on any ITSP's network. G.711 is one, and G.729 is the other codec supported. And on average, including the overhead, if you're running G.711, it's approximately 80K per call. G.729 is approximately 35K per call.
Great, thank you. Chad, our next audience member here asks, are call centers migrating to SIP trunking? With multi-location call centers, how is trunking redundancy supported? Do they centralize SIP trunking, or does each call center location have their own SIP trunks for disaster recovery?
Good question. So call centers are migrating to SIP trunking. Now, we do ask for some DVR reports and some other statistical data to qualify them for the service. And we do see multiple call centers consolidating to a more of a regional type trunking presence, where they would maybe combine 3 or 4 of their sites in a regional facility. And in terms of answering disaster recovery or the backup question, if they have a couple of main hubs, if you will, they want to fail over to each other, they need to go through the due diligence and verify with the ITSP that there are multiple routes within the network and that there are multiple switch types within the network, so that they have the ability to fail over. Certain soft switching manufacturers handle disaster recovery and fail over differently, and inherently the ITSP offers that as well. So they need to kind of verify with your ITSP on how they handle and deliver the disaster recovery type service.
Great, thank you. Chad, our next question here again is for you. Aren't most of the cost per minute savings based on intra-company traffic? Don't you incur LD or 800 per minute PSTN charges when you go outside of the enterprise?
Good question. Okay, so the answer to that can be answered in twofold. One, a lot of the cost savings are surrounding intra-company traffic, especially when folks are running their SIP traffic across an existing wide area network, such as an MPLS network or private line or whatever the data connectivity may be. However, TDM usage or TDM long distance is typically higher than the average ITSP traffic, especially when you're comparing your intrastate and intra-LATA calls versus interstate calls. So there's some routing and some network designs that ITSPs can offer that would significantly reduce the domestic long-distance traffic, as well as the international long-distance traffic, which obviously each carrier negotiates certain rates. So, but the intra-company traffic either is eliminated or goes away. The 1+ long-distance dialing is what we have seen has been significantly reduced in most cases.
Great, thanks, Chad. Ramon, our next audience question here is for you. What is the capacity in terms of bandwidth for the Patton router? I have an application where a customer is looking to manage their own router and interconnect to up to 3 SIP trunk providers at the same time. Each will be 100 MP pipe.
100 megabits each. Yeah. So I mean, in that case, we can do up to 100 megabits wire speed routing on the products which have 100 megabit fast Ethernet ports. We have some product with gigabit Ethernet ports which can go higher, but that's not our primary focus is on high speed routers like that. Nevertheless, I mean to reach really a bandwidth of 100 megabits, you need to have a lot of voice calls, so literally thousands. So I would say the limitation there is not on the routing capacity, but on the number of calls that you want to have.
Thanks, Ramon. It looks like we have time for just another question here, and this is also for you. Does this combined solution support T.38 VoIP-based faxing?
Yes, absolutely it does. Yeah, T38 fax and also G711 fax bypass and modem over IP. Yeah.
Great, thank you so much. Now, unfortunately, it does look like that's all the time that we do have for questions today. I'd like to thank each of you for attending today's event, as well as our sponsor, Patton, and all of our presenters for joining us today. One last reminder, please check your inbox tomorrow for additional information on the archived version of today's webinar. Please also be sure to check out the VoIPReady case study link on your screen at this time. Thanks again, and have a great day.